Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday, February 27th, 2019 SIG API Machinery meeting. We have a short agenda, just 2 items, but one of the items is potentially a pretty open-ended discussion. So let's kick it off with the first item, which I will introduce real quick. Some kind contributor, I think I filed an issue or something, or we tried it in Slack or something. Anyway, we have this nifty PR out which adds a resource version precondition to delete options, which really I think must have been an oversight. We had a UID precondition, which makes sure that you're deleting the object that you intended to, but we'd never had a resource version precondition, so you couldn't be sure that nobody else had changed it. You couldn't be sure to have seen the last version of the object. So I think that was a fairly large oversight. It means you could lose stuff, so I think that's pretty valuable. I added it to the agenda just because basically 2 reasons. Like I wanted people to be aware of it, because it's like we didn't make a CAP for this or anything. I don't know if it really merits a CAP. It is a new API. It is a new little bit in the API surface area, so good to be aware of that. The other reason is the change as it stands doesn't have any provision for making sure that if you set this field when you talk to an old cluster, that the old cluster will basically just ignore it rather than honoring it. And so I wanted to raise that for the SIG. Is that too bad? Do we have to do this in a 2-version approach? We did that for dry run, making sure that I forget which version, but one version rejected all dry run requests, and then the next version started honoring them. So at least you had some guarantee that an old system, even if it didn't understand it, would still reject the request. We wouldn't have that with this PR as it stands. So I just wanted to throw that out there and see if anyone thinks that there's a serious problem or reason to delay this by 1 release.
So what is the behavior if we do nothing? Is it
if we do nothing,
ignored, or?
Yeah, if we do nothing, then an old API server will see a request with a delete request with this RV precondition set and ignore it.
Ignore the precondition.
It'll ignore the precondition, yes.
Yeah, this precondition, if someone goes to the effort of actually setting it, they probably really care that it actually did what it was. You think about previous ones we've done where, say, you have list pagination. And if your list pagination request is ignored, you really care.
Yes.
You're unhappy, but you can understand it all. But in this case, if you explicitly say, please don't delete me, if you've changed, you probably have a reason for caring.
Yes.
I agree with David.
I agree, but on the other hand, right now you can't say it. So anybody who cares is screwed at the moment.
Yes, that's the other side of the coin.
Well, how do we fix? I mean, sorry, you kind of alluded to it, but what is your plan if we were to try doing the two release approach?
The 2 release approach is put it into this upcoming release, but instead of honoring it, just always reject a request that sets it, and then the next release begin honoring it. It still doesn't help if somebody sends a request to an even older system.
Yeah, but we've done things like kube control only does 1 release SKU.
Correct.
If you're doing a rolling upgrade, you're only going to have 1 release. I'm not going to say it's impossible today to roll back multiple versions of kube, but it's really hard.
I mean, one could argue that since this is not changing kube control at all, it's just an API feature, like users using kube control are not going to hit this.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah, I was going to say, this sounds like more like something you'd get out of someone's personal controller.
Yes.
And I don't think we have a way of mandating that a controller is no more than 1 release out.
Yeah.
You don't, but if you install it if you install a certain level, then install something that relies on it, and then roll back one version of Cube, that's something you should probably handle. But 2, you probably don't care. I don't feel super strongly about this particular one, but
so one last thought on this. Does it merit a feature gate, or do we think that this change is simple enough that we can just put it directly in?
I haven't looked at the code. I think a lot's going to depend on how hard it was to wire.
The code is fairly straightforward. Like, all the necessary places were already there because of the UID condition. So it's been a little bit since I looked at it, but when I looked at it, seemed pretty straightforward.
Yeah, as long as the wiring is reasonable, I wouldn't worry too much about a feature gate.
On the other hand, maybe the feature gate is the answer to the previous conundrum.
Wouldn't help, right?
Well, I mean, the feature gate would
Make it more unpredictable,
but continue rejecting the requests.
My point is that the feature gate moves the responsibility for making this decision from us to the operator, which is a little bit better.
Not really. It makes it impossible for the person deploying on it to actually know what's going to happen, right? Is it on in this cluster or not? I don't know. Did it ignore my request or honor it? I don't know.
The behavior, if the feature gate is off, is that we would still look at whether the precondition was set, but instead of honoring it, we would reject the requests.
Yeah. If it's easy to wire, I don't think I would put a feature gate on it.
Okay, I'll take this as a mandate to just go ahead and help this contributor do whatever he needs to get this in.
You just mentioned another shoe to drop here, though. If kube control can't set this today, someday someone's going to ask that it can.
Potentially, yeah. Antoine, do you have any, or David, any thoughts on that? Justin is next.
Yeah, we haven't seen preconditions wired through delete, as I recall, before. So I don't know that we would actually set it in kube control.
Yeah, does kube control set the UID precondition?
Not that I know of. And
Not aware of that either.
And you wouldn't really be able to get it for most of the intent-based kube control things. So I would actually kind of expect SIG CLI to hold the line of, that's a really advanced use case. If you need to do that, you need something special.
Sounds good. Justin, you had something to say?
Yeah, I just was wondering, how does this interact with update, which has a sort of implicit resource version precondition?
Yeah, update has always basically been able to do this, although it's not like in your face.
But what if I set both, is what I'm wondering.
Update options do not get an explicit RV precondition, so it's only, like, the implementation is that it is a query parameter because it goes into deletion options. So update is unaffected by this. It does mean that the way you get a precondition is different, depending on whether you're sending an update or a delete request. That's kind of already the case in our system.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other thoughts on that? So I think the next discussion, and Mike, you can say your piece in this second if this doesn't seem right, but I think the next discussion is going to be open-ended and mostly about how do we as a group make good progress on a complicated design. What are our forums that we should be using to interact with? Yeah. I don't know that, and we could also like dive into the design that we have right now, or we could focus on how do we make sure everybody who wants to be involved is involved. I think we made some improvements in that we switched. Somehow we got on an email thread after a meeting, and so we've switched that to the SIG list. So maybe that will help. I don't know, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think we should have. I don't like having a private email conversation. So I would be happy if we just moved it to the SIG list. the mailing list. I think we do have some, high-level discussion to have. So trying to just, take a draft and discuss it in the margin is not, we're not quite ready for that yet.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. So the thread, like, I didn't respond as frequently as I would have liked because it is kind of complicated, and I wanted to write down my response clearly, and that turns out I have in fact, I can project it right now. I have 5 pages of this at the moment, which I believe I will send to the list immediately after this. I just finished it. Well, maybe I want to reread it, but I'll be sending that to the list shortly. Yeah, so
okay,
that's part of the reason for the slow responses on my part. Is just it's actually pretty involved to come up with a design that satisfies all the requirements, and the requirements aren't completely clear either, are they?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think that we can solve a lot of the problem with something fairly small and gain a lot of benefit.
that's what I'm aiming for. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think at this point, I'm a little confused. Like, we made so many comments in the margin, and we had a small group meeting to discuss it, and we had some email threads. And at this point, I'm confused about what the proposal is. So I think the next thing is someone, Kim, if he has time, needs to write a second draft or send a KEP, send an actual KEP. The things labeled as KEPs in the notes here are actually documents, not KEPs.
Okay. So as I said, I think we still have some kind of high-level discussion that's not finished.
Yeah.
So tell you what, if you have a significant dump of thoughts, why don't you send that? I'll be happy to read that and respond with trying to consolidate the discussion, with a summary of what I think we to the degree we settled on some things, what we settled on and what I think are the open questions at a high level, and try to focus the conversation to move it forward.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Yeah. Anyone else with thoughts? Anyone who hasn't spoken already?
I would actually like to mention that I think if we want to keep this as a public record, a very lightweight draft cap of the basics that everyone then chimes in on may not be a bad way of getting all of it in a public record, and in fact a public record which is the first place people are going to look for the record of why things are the way they are.
Yeah, so that might look like starting a KEP and only filling in the requirements and iterating on that until we're happy, and then starting to fill.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess the idea with KEPs is we're supposed to merge often and like so that you can see the history in Git commits. I don't know if I'm completely on board with this theory, but I'm willing to give it a try.
Well, the other thing is the KEPs now have a like a seven phase status update thing, where like proposed is even like the third one in there. So it is clearly designed to be a iterative place to capture a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I think that is a reasonable thing for us to do.
So then I guess what I should try to do then is start an actual KEP after reading what you're going to post.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I think it'd be great if we could lock in what little progress we've made so far.
and this is a KEP specifically, again, since I think we do still have some open issues, a KEP that is a place. I guess I'm not quite sufficiently familiar with KEPs, so I'll see if I can look that up and understand it as a way to document the community's thinking about why it is the way, what we want and why we want it, and don't want something else.
Yeah, I agree. There's like an entire enhancements repository for KEPs. So yeah, if you have time to start that, that'd be awesome. Otherwise, maybe I'll do it.
I'll see what I can do. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, we can coordinate on the email list. Okay, we are 18 minutes in, and this is maybe one of our shortest meetings ever. Does anybody have other items that would be good to talk about in this group, or should we call it a short day?
I'm good.
All right. Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you, everybody. This has been a very short meeting, super efficient. I'll see you all in a couple weeks.
Thanks. Bye.